preservation of cultural dance, music, and attire for PCC and outside PCC?
One thing is that, like, kind of just what Oriana said too, is we have to like educate people about like what these cultural dances and like the cultural costumes mean. Because I think one thing that I've heard from other people is that like they just kind of like join the dances without like really like knowing what it's about or like why it's important. And I think that's one like main thing that needs to be addressed. And also just saying how much like the cultural costumes like mean or like the outfits mean without like we can like appreciate it without being like accused of like appropriating like indigenous cultures. So like that's probably like the main thing that I
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How will you ensure the awareness and preservation of cultural dance, music, and attire for PCC and outside of PCC?
I think first and foremost, having the choreographers aware of the historical background and costumes of the dance so that they can inform the people who want to participate about the history of it. And then just reminding them every so often that it's not just a performance, that it's about learning about your culture is something I want to emphasize.
Can you repeat the question from the text?
Am I saying it wrong?
Oh, no, it's just like, it's a lot.
How will you ensure the awareness and preservation of cultural dance, music, and attire for PCC and outside of PCC?
Education. We have to be aware of where these dances come from, what the clothes mean, where those clothes come from, even the fabrics or whatever the people use. You know, we just need to know the history of it, and that will give us a lot more appreciation for the dances that we do, and it'll give us a lot more life into the dances that we do. Because honestly, like when last PCC when I did Fandango, I didn't really know what Fandango was. It was kind of like a last minute thing just because it looked like fun. But like when I got to learn what the dance was really about, like that's when I really had like a greater appreciation for the dance and for the culture surrounding it. So I think we just need to like really let people know what these dances are and why they're significant to us.
The relatively high cast fees discourages people from participating in PCC. So how will you address this issue and help people with financial issues?
Okay, well, my first original thought was to charge maybe a little bit for tickets, but I understand that we don't charge for tickets because we want to allow people from lower economic standings to be able to see the performance because it's about accessibility. I was thinking maybe we could charge a little bit for programs or even sell apparel for PCC at the event, and maybe we can like account for some of our financial constraints through that. Also, we can collaborate with the fundraising team in OCC, and maybe like promote more fundraising. For example, I know Gia, one of her fundraisers was Valentine's Grams, and maybe something we can do to like promote more people to participate is maybe like have Katahan Grams, so Katahan can sing to a specific person. Just ideas like that, you know. That's all I have to say.
What's the question again?
The relatively high cast fees discourages people from participating in PCC. So how will you address and help people with financial issues?
Yeah, the $75 was a lot for me. I was scared of the $75 because I don't have $75. But yeah, like to encourage people to be part of PCC without being afraid of the $75 is to, fundraise. Like my experience in theater in high school, we had to put on a production that cost like a couple $1,000s, and then there was only like 10 of us who were putting it on, including our teacher. So like, where are we going to get the money for that? So we did have like a lot of different fundraisers, from just like working with like Chipotle to see if we could get people to go to Chipotle, or car washes and just stuff like that. Just like, we still had to pay though, but just anything to minimize are the financial burden I'm putting on the show. $75 is a lot. It's a lot. So like I would encourage, well, definitely Arlon's. Like I didn't really take advantage of Arlon's this PCC, and like I want to see how I can expand that. I want to see how Arlon's could be applied to like retaining people and then like building relationships. So yeah.
I think for me, like one thing that I'd like to like do like in the next year if I was given the position is that like we can like plan ahead and we can start like doing these like little fundraisers like early on in the year, like more spread out, so that way it's not just like one big one, and then it's like like sometimes like the amount of people participating is not always going to be the same, and so like if we have like fewer like little ones like that spread out, like it allows more people to participate in these like fundraisers. And one thing too is that maybe like to also like expand those fundraisers not just within the KP like space, but also like we try to like reach out to other communities, like other organizations in UCSD, and like if we tell them like this is what PCC is about, like this is what our goal is, this is what we're trying to achieve, like if we're able to communicate to them like what it means to us, I think it'll be easier, it'll be like a lot easier for them to like understand and then like maybe like participate in those fundraisers or even like spread the word, because I think that's another thing that I was told like by a friend who was like not in KP, but like she appreciated like the whole PCC show, but then she was like, oh, I wish like I was able to like know more about it, so maybe if we could get on like spread the word early on, then we can achieve that.
An issue from this year's PCC was communication. For example, participants did not know when their rotations are. How do you plan on improving communication between components, especially choreographers and the co-chorus?
Me first. Establishing a clear agenda. Honestly, PCC requires a lot of planning, and then we have to have everyone on that same agenda. We can't just we can't just throw it out last second expecting people to go find it. So what I'm thinking of doing, and this is what I did in theater, is that you would have a carefully scheduled out plan for the following months, specifically also dates where everyone is together, and then have that be accessible to everyone at all times. Because honestly, communication, there shouldn't be any reason why people don't know what's going on. Like that information should be given, and it shouldn't be an issue, honestly. Not making it to things, it's understandable when there is miscommunication and when there is things that do come up, but honestly we just need careful planning, an agenda that everyone's on, and then just a plan that will not change at the last minute, because honestly that messes everything up.
One thing that I'd say about communication is that really holding each other accountable. I mean, I've personally with the dances that I was in, Kandahan, or the other components, I for my experience, there were times where for me choreographers and the ones who are in position have communicate, I felt like they've communicate well enough in terms of the agenda, the schedule, but sometimes we fall short on the performer's head, and or sometimes it's the other way around. So it's really a two-way street, and making sure that both are putting in the same amount of effort and communication. And it's if you see your friend that are who's not doing so well in that end, and also not kind of going out to the commitments, make sure you also hold them accountable and just remind them, hey, this is what you signed up for, and I know you're busy, but then at least try to communicate that and not just kind of ghost. So that's definitely a big thing.
Yeah, I agree with what Virgil and Marie both said. In addition to all of that, I think that in addition to the original agenda, the COCO should anticipate they should make alternate agendas, assuming that we'll run over time, because we usually do, or we fall behind. So just adjusting and making sure that you communicate that plans have changed and that choreographers are able to tell the people in their components, and the people in the components are listening to them. Just making communication really clear.
Having run Oh, okay.
Having run-throughs every other week was actually just implemented this year. Also, the other one was not putting our run-throughs before every practices because people just show up like when their rotation is on. So those are the ideas this year. But if you were in Coco, what are some specific ideas about the PCC process that you hope to improve on?
For me, I think like one thing that I really like appreciated in the process, like personally, like I was able to like create a lot of bonds with like the people around me, like outside my family, outside like the people that I know that I previously knew. And like one thing, I think that will strengthen like the PCC process and will help like for us to put on like a really great production is like for people to like get to know each other. And a program that I was like thinking in mind was kind of like similar to like Kuya Ed's and like Ate Alexis's like idea of like a John hangout. So I was thinking like maybe like if like separate components like you know like the different dances or like the other components could like come up with like their own like hangouts as like a way to like bond with each other, not just like see each other practice and then dip and then like not really because I felt like that quite a lot of times in like the other components where it's like I just really like didn't know them as much, didn't connect with them as much. But I feel like that will also like foster like growth and bond like within the community and like also like allow us to like put on like a great show.
I agree. I think I remember at the last community forum, one of the main concerns was the upper and lower head gap because there apparently wasn't like a huge interaction between like the third and fourth, between the first and seconds. So I think making it apparent that PCC is a production, but it's also about building community and encouraging the members that, or reminding them that it is about getting to know the people in your community. So just letting them know that they should be reaching out to lower heads and upper heads. In addition to that, I noticed that there was a shortage of cultural choreographers because Kuya Jacob choreographed 2 dances and then Nico choreographed 2 and he doesn't even go here. So like I think no, I love him, but like I think that we should be incorporating a group of cultural choreographers because I know that there's a modern dance space in KMOD, and we should have a cultural dance space in addition to that. So I would just like to implement that for next year, and maybe choreographing can go more smoothly.
So what I really like about this PCC was that we started. Well, y'all said that you started early, and then that you also implemented. I'm so sorry, it's so late. The 2 week all casts. So what I propose, honestly, well, like what I did say earlier, for my purpose of applying to be Coco is that I want people to be able to call KP home, and especially, you know, come together, make that feeling of home through culture. And well, that's the plan. Like I want people to get together. What Ariana said about the upper heads and lower heads not being able to like, you know, really talk to each other and communicate. That's kind of like it should be. Well, the goal is that it should be avoidable. You know, that we have to be able to get together and whatever combines us and whatever connects us, like dance or music or acting or through the culture. That's what's going to connect us. And what I propose is that, you know, we just hang out with each other, encourage community, however we see fit. And honestly, I do not know at the moment how I'm going to encourage that, and that's something that I should be planning if I do get this position within the next year. But with my experience with building a team, theater, and all that stuff, like what makes a great show and what makes a great community is like when we all just get together and be real with each other and, you know, find commonalities. And yeah.
How will you promote
education of cultural knowledge and awareness besides PCC? Examples, new programs, or workshops.
Well, like I said before, I think creating a space for cultural dancing will be really beneficial because not only will it make us more prepared for PCC, but it'll also educate the rest of the community about our culture and the dances that come with it. Because, like I said before, a lot of us don't realize the rich history that the dances and the costumes and everything that goes with it comes from. So I think just creating spaces in which we can learn is most beneficial to us.
And expanding on that, using the spaces that we're already given, like GBMs, where we can include more cultural, just like cultural highlights, like, oh, this is the indigenous tribe we want to highlight this week, or this is the dance we want to highlight, or this is a recipe for adobo ngaso or whatever. No! But just or just like making sure that we do increase the exposure of our culture, because honestly, throughout this year and in GBMs, the ones that I've been to, there's been a lack of of culture actually being exposed in those GBMs, and like be it through GBMs or through like Facebook posts or even on like the UCSD's KP's Facebook page or Instagram or Twitter, just like something each week, or something very little that just shows what our culture is really about. I think will encourage people to really look into like different things and not just what's presented at PCC.
So besides PCC, like one thing that I had in mind is that so I would like really like for us to be able to like redefine like our culture, because I know like there are quite some like overgeneralizations about like what Filipino culture is, some stereotypes, and for me like it'll be great to like be able to invite like some speakers from like who are like looking out from like who are doing like different things, like various things, whether it be cultural, professional, and like the queer space, the nice space, and like be able to like share how we can like go ahead and redefine our space and like how it relates back to our culture, because like I feel like there has been this kind of like issue in which like culture is only like this specific thing, and it's like if you don't fit into this mold, then it's like you're not really cultural. So I feel like being able to like have like speakers and like to be like looked up to as like someone who's like redefining culture would be a great thing.
Any last pressing questions? So 1, 2, and then 3.
So PCC is a year-long process. How are you going to manage your time to meet the time-intensive deadlines while also knowing when and how to practice self-care?
I'm the kind of person that thrives under a lot of pressure. Like I need to have a busy schedule in order to get stuff done. As far as self-care, honestly, all I really need is just to be surrounded by people that I really care about and people that are very important to me. And then we're just, willing to put in as much effort as I am to put into our relationship. And it could be through just like one-on-ones or in hangouts or whatever it is, or just like going to the gym or just like talking about life or whatever. That's honestly enough for me. And I think that as long as I have that, as long as I have the community during the PCC process, then whatever PCC throws at me, then I'm pretty sure I'm going to handle it well.
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
So PCC is a year-long process. How are you going to manage your time to meet the time-intensive deadlines?
For me, like I personally feel like I plan like very well. With that, like also like I have attempted to like plan like my first year, but unfortunately like things like happen. My fall quarter, unfortunately, like I was hit with like major depression. Winter quarter, I was like hit with all the responsibilities that I have to like manage like my mom's breast cancer diagnosis and like going back and forth from home to UCSD. And so like if there's anything that I learned is that you have to be flexible because no matter how much you plan ahead of time, there's always going to be something that comes up. And I know like, you know, like you plan it and it's like, oh shoot, like nothing like what was planned. It's like sometimes you just have to take a step back and like reassess everything and then like be flexible at how you're going to do it. And so I think like that's one mindset that I have is like being flexible that I learned from it. And then how I practice self-care is honestly sometimes just taking time for myself, whether it just be like for me like my alone time I think is a self-care. I know people sometimes think it's like weird. I can go out to go eat by myself or just go out to places by myself. I think it's self-care because I'm able to like think myself through like or meditate about things. And also I think all the support that I've gotten from a lot of people in the space through like the hard times is also like a form of self-care.
Okay, first and foremost, I think that, well, the way I would approach it is first I would set out a calendar starting with the first month that we have to start preparing and the last month, and I'll set monthly goals of things that I need to get done. And if those things don't get done, then like Marie said, I'm pretty flexible when it comes to like changes. So in terms of self-care, I think when I really set my heart to something, I kind of compromise self-care, and I think the most important thing is just sleep. Because the thing I tell myself is I can sleep after this is done, but no, you have to sleep in between because you're gonna lose energy, girl. So like, no, the main thing is sleep.
Wait, was it Jamaica's? And then
What is TAP? What is your understanding of TAP? And why is TAP important? Aside from fundraisers, GoFundMe, and sponsorships, what other ways of funding do you have in mind? And what experiences do you have with budgeting?
The first question, TAP, from my understanding, it's like the Triton's Activities Planner, in which like where you get like the funding that we like propose for our events. So aside from like fundraising, I think another big thing is that we can like ask for like donations or like even collaborate with like other orgs, major orgs or like bigger ones, and then like learn from how they fundraise their events, like major events, like for us like PCC. And what was the last part? Sorry, there was like last part of the question.
What experiences do you have with budgeting?
With budgeting, it was pretty minor, but when my leadership position at my local hospital, when I was like a junior leader, so I was like on like their board and like I was charged with like being like the financier. So I had to like budget like for events such as like orientations or like cultural celebrations. And like one thing that like I had experience with is that like making sure to like allocate like the money that we have to like proper things and not just kind of like spending it on unimportant ideas, I guess.
Cool, okay. Well, like Marie said, yeah, TAP stands for Triton Activities Planner, and you file a TAP when an org wants to have an event. So I think the 4 things are you have to file your event time/date, event location with location serial number, event description, and the 4th thing I cannot remember right now, but if I remember it, I'll mention it later. Wait, sorry, what were the other parts of the question?
Aside from fundraisers, GoFundMe, and sponsorships, what other ways of funding do you have in mind?
Yeah, like Marie said, I think asking for donations is a good idea. Maybe like placing different donation boxes around campus and like putting a little description of what PCC is and what the event is about. Maybe that'll promote people walking by to donate a simple $1 to our cause. What was the last question? Sorry.
What experiences do you have with budgeting?
Experiences I have with budgeting. One of my main responsibilities when I was in high school was planning for different events because I was I held leadership positions in my high school Filipino club, and we had to account for a lot of events, like our own cultural celebration and different events throughout the year. So I guess just keeping in mind a projected amount of money we needed to raise, and then making sure that we could create like a proper fundraiser to get that amount. Oh, okay, sorry.
So TAB, I'm an intern, but I do not have a lot of experience with TAB. Try-in activities planner, I believe that's what it means. I will educate myself on that, I promise. But what's the other parts of the question?
Aside from fundraisers, GoFundMe, and sponsorships, what other ways of funding do you have in mind?
Okay, so what I did in theater, since I come from like a small town near Pomona, not very privileged and all that, our drama program was very underfunded, so we had to manage. So like what we did during a show was that we had people run around with buckets and like, you know, for like a minute and go like, hey, donate to us for the PCC or whatever, or like, you know, the show that we're putting on. And then like that would like, you know, we would make some change, but like seeing how many people that actually show up to PCC, then I would assume that we would be getting quite a bit. You said that aside from sponsorships, I mean, like, I was thinking that, you know, we try to get some powerful people to back us up, you know, some strong people in the Filipino community within San Diego or organizations that could help us. You know, we can appeal to them and see how they can help us with our PCC show. And as far as my experience with budgeting, aside from theater and like allocating funds to like props, costumes, and like even to competitions where we apply for like scholarships and all that stuff, transportation and like all that. I was also an officer of UNICEF in my high school, and we had to do a lot of planning when it comes to fundraising and allocating funds to like the different fundraisers that we do, and like how I'm almost done. How much we're going to spend and how much we're going to profit, and just like all the numbers, like just the numbers came on that.
I was just going to say, the PCC is valued highly in the KP space, and there seems to be a lot of expectation in the process of producing it. So do you have any experience like with leadership, organization, and planning? And how do you use these skills to meet your vision for PCC?
Okay, in my junior and senior year, I coordinated the performances that my Filipino club contributed to our school's multicultural celebration, because we didn't have a night dedicated to just Filipino culture. It was kind of all the cultural clubs jumbled into one assembly. So I was basically in charge of choreographing, so blocking, figuring out who goes where, music, costumes, and I collaborated with the treasurer with fundraising, and just a lot of logistical stuff I had to do.
How do you plan to use these skills?
Oh shoot, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the second part?
Oh yeah, how do you plan to use these skills to meet your vision for PCC?
Okay, I feel that a lot of my responsibilities from before have a lot of overlap with the cultural coordinator, but I plan to use those strengths to give me the confidence to create my vision. Right now, I'm not really sure what my vision is, but the main goal is to portray our story as the community is portrayed, and for it to be communicated effectively so the audience can become educated and aware of our struggles and our history.
Oh, okay. Oh, what was the question?
Yeah, PCC is important in KP. Do you have experience with leaderships, with leadership positions, organization, and planning? And how do you plan to use these skills to meet your vision for PCC?
So like I said before, I was involved with theater and also UNICEF in high school, and I was an officer for both of them. And then I do have a lot of experience, like the logistical part of it, of just like budgeting and allocating funds to like props, costumes, set design, and just like all that stuff. But most importantly, what I do value from those leadership roles that I did assume in high school was just like how much I had an influence on building the community. Because honestly, aside from like all the logistical stuff, all that you really have left is just the bones and flesh. You know, the hard work that people are willing to put into production that you wanna realize. So, like, I just want to be able to apply my skills, make a bigger community, a better community, and a more friendly community. And I want people to feel welcomed, especially if they don't really connect with the culture as many other people do. Like the culture of KP, in my opinion, isn't Filipino. It's not exactly American either. It's not really Filipino-American. It's not just gay or straight. I consider our culture as like I consider it as like a cultural chimera. We don't really know what it is, but it is what we are. And I just want people to really find themselves in that space, and then just like become a part of that space, no matter if they if they know who they are or not.
So for me, like what I mentioned earlier, like in my previous high school back home, like for the month-long celebration of like Buwan ng Wika, I was one of the officers, and one thing that I had to do was like make sure to like plan out like where like certain performances and events would take place on campus, off campus. So it's like I had to like communicate with those people who are in charge of like specific places, and so like making sure that I communicate with them and then saving the space like well ahead of time in order to like make sure we like enter the spot, and also like planning like an optimal date to like hold these events that will ensure like the highest peak of like attendance. And also another thing was that I was also collaborating and like communicating with like other schools and like inviting them to come out to a support and like watch our shows. And a vision that I had for PCC is that for me I feel like there's like a quite a like sentiment of like feeling like at home or like the culture. But one thing that I would really like is for other like organizations to come out, or like non-Filipinos like to come out to PCC and for them to see like what we have to offer, because I know like there are like generalizations and also like these assumptions of like what Filipino culture is, and like sometimes they're negative, and so I want them to like come out and see that like like we are like tackling these issues, and like we are using like a platform and like seeing how like our culture is like progressing over the years, and how like this year's PCC was like about mental health issues and about like LGBTQ like issues, and it's like just showing that we are aware and we are like doing something about it. Like we're not just like what you think we are.
Okay, that was the last question. Thank you. Up next, we have BCF. It's a really long description. Hopefully, y'all can read it. Oh, wait, yeah, it's on our KP Constitution. So, our candidate for Vice Chair Finance is Avinash Minhas.
I lost my phone upstairs. Did anyone accidentally grab it maybe in their bag, or it has my ID and everything?
Wait, did you talk to the custodian?
What color?
Only if they accidentally put it in their bag.
That's all. Did you talk to the custodians?
We already did.
They don't know what
I think the person who was cleaning for the floor already left. So they have lost my phone.
Right? They should have lost found.
Find your iPhone. They're gonna get back. This is the bad price who's going around.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay,
Okay, so please introduce yourself and why you're running for this position.
Okay, hi, I'm Avinash Minhas. I'm a second year economics major, business minor from 6 College. I wanted to run for this position because KP's been like a really welcoming open space for me, and I wanted to give back somehow. I'm running for this specific position because I really enjoy finance. I hope that I can go into it post grad. Currently I work as a financial assistant in the Department of Reproductive Medicine at the UCSD Med Center, and I also am. I've also taken technical classes in accounting and finance, as well as learning from workshops in another org, Women in Business. So I think I just have the skills I feel like I have the skills to where I can do this job well.
What is TAP? What is your experience with using it?
TAP is Triton Activities Planner. I don't have any experience using it because I haven't been on board in other organizations, but I know that it's you have to for when an organization has an event that's not just a general body meeting or a small social function, you have to fill out like certain forms and let the university know for things like funding purposes. And if I do get this position, then I would definitely like learn more about it and learn the specific criteria in which a TAP form has to be filled out. And
As an executive position, the Vice Chair of Finance assists with not only their own position requirements, but also assisting other board members with their events. What experience do you have with supporting others while sustaining yourself in your work?
Okay. In high school, I was also I was an officer in that one health occupation in HOSA, Health Occupation Students of America, and in that organization, I was parliamentarian, but even a lot of our duties often intersected because we were a pretty big organization with a pretty small officer team. So we often had to support one another and just help out with different fundraisers, blood drives, helping. There was a state competition that we went to at the end of the year, and that was a big collaborative group effort. I think that I can definitely do that in the KP board space in terms of like reaching out when I need help and reaching out when others need help. I know that one of the positions each event that KP has finance committees, and I know that as the vice chair, you don't have to be the head of those committees, but I would be more than willing to help out if somebody is struggling because financials, budgeting, it is a lot of work, but it is really, really important to each of the events that KP puts on.
As Vice Chair of Finance, you are a liaison to many different entities and funding sources. What are these entities and sources, and your understanding of them in that KP may utilize for its events, programs, and operations?
I know that there's the Center for Student Involvement, which kind of is about helping out all the different organizations on campus. I know that there's the Student Business like Operations Office. I'm not sure if I really got that right, but SBLO, which is more about financials and business management of different organizations. I don't have a lot of experience in terms of dealing with those specific campus bodies because I've never been in a leadership position at UCSD. But again, I'm more than willing to learn about those specific places. I have already done like some little bits of research into what exactly they do and how they help different types of organizations and what their job is in terms of helping organizations like KP. I'm trying to keep my answer short because I know it's late.
A big KP-affiliated event that involves months of planning and thousands of dollars is set for next week. After getting more accurate estimates as the event date draws closer, we find out that KP does not have enough funds and faces a deficit of $1,500. What might you do in this scenario?
Okay, definitely, I would first try and see like what could be cut, if there's anything that could be cut from the event, which I know sucks, but if there is a deficit of $1,500, then that's really bad for an organization that needs to have at least $1,000 in its in the KP card. So definitely see what could be cut. What if there's any kind of like emergency funding that we could get, if there's any like last minute fundraiser, any kind of situation any kind of help that we could get. I would really try to avoid that happening, like if it's a months of planning kind of thing. I would definitely try to avoid that happening originally by projecting out those expenses way beforehand. In general, I would never ever want to be $1,500. The data from previous projects and from previous years, and seeing how I can apply that to this year's budget. What's changed? Is there growth that needs to be accounted for? To like, do they need more funding? Like things like that.
Currently, KP has financial statements spreadsheet used to accurately and diligently log fundraisers, details, cash flows, and net profits. What new ideas do you have to organize and maintain KP's financial health?
Well, like I said before, like just budgeting out like months and months of, in advance for different projects. Definitely continue with the financial statements because Joey did show me those, and I think that's a really great way of consistently knowing what and also consistently knowing like what's working and what's not. Like especially for fundraisers, seeing which ones are the most profitable, and then sorry, it's so late right now. But yeah, doing income statements, financial statements, and yeah, like taking historical data, because a lot of the big events that need the most planning, like PCC, Makasama, they've been being done like for several years now. So looking at previous year's financial statements or the previous year's financial records, and seeing like trying to implement that into like this year's budget, and trying to like just so we know like, okay, how much money do we actually need to allocate to this event. Yeah.
As VCF, you serve as an exec or a leader among leaders. How would you hold accountability to the rest of your board, with it being your first year on board too?
I think that in terms, I know that being a vice chair means that you have to hold the rest of board accountable in terms of attendance, in terms of the effort they're putting into their position. And I think a big part of that is just open and honest like communication, like really checking in with them and seeing if they're doing what they should be doing, and also just being understanding in terms of like it might not be that they're slacking, it might just be like, oh, the event is so overwhelming. Whatever they're doing, it's more work than maybe we had all previously realized, and like extending yourself to like understanding their situation and extending yourself and like reaching out to them as like a resource and being like, oh, like I can help like in any way I can.
During the school year, many fundraisers go on simultaneously. How will you ensure that fundraisers are not competing with each other and people are aware of the ones being held?
Okay, so I'll actually answer the last part of that question first. I'll make sure that people know which ones are being held just through lots and lots of advertising, lots and lots of marketing. And if it's a very intensive fundraiser that's maybe that requires more effort and more work and might, and maybe like a greater amount of money in the beginning, planning that out for a little bit, for like at least like a month or two, like a month in advance. And so like making sure we don't take a loss on it, and then handling fundraisers that are happening all at once. Just whoever's in charge of whichever fundraiser, just making sure that they know, like keeping the lines of communication open, so I know like what they're spending on, if there's like reimbursements that need to be made to somebody, and that way I just know like, oh, what we're like where our funds are going essentially.
Are there any other pressing questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, and our last candidate for today. Woohoo, chair! That's it. The table again.
Wow.
The entire year is that.
All right, I'm sorry this took a long time, everyone, but we're almost there.
Yes.
Someone give her a chair.
Okay. All right. I apologize in advance if I start like coughing like a lot during my Q&A. But hello, everyone. I'm Kathleen Apostle. I'm a third year from Marshall College, communication major, and I'm running for Kaibigang Filipino's chair. And the question was, why am I running for chair? Okay. I guess like this, as corny as it sounds and everyone says it, it's true, because honestly, where would I be without KP? Oh, that rhymed too. Okay. Honestly, I feel like KP was the community that really retained me the most. I guess like during this school year, I took the time to step back from the space. I should put this down. Step back from the space, thinking that like, oh, I need to take a breather. I need to explore different things, explore like more of like what I want to do through like going to more professional orgs, or just heading towards like more like creative passion projects. But I guess after stepping out of the space and then realizing like, I guess one thing I noticed that every night I like feel really tired and feel really drained, and I started questioning myself like, oh, why am I even doing these things? Am I actually feeling fulfilled from doing these different things? And so during the past few weeks when I was trying to figure out why I wanted to do chair in the first place, and why I wanted to come back to the KP board space, it made me realize and made me remember like the feelings I had my first 2 years in KP, or my first 2 years in college in general. How like when I was a first year coming into space, being really energized, trying out all these different like events and initiatives, meeting all of these like cool ates that like inspired me, and definitely okay. Sorry. I'm doing it for the community, but also doing it for myself, because at the end of the day, when I look back, whenever like I come back from a KP event, especially like coming like past few weeks, rewind back to like coming out of like PCC, it definitely made me feel like, oh,
But it's this like lovely feeling inside of me when I come back home. I'm tired, I'm drained, but I'm full, I'm whole. And it's because just being in this community made me happy and continues to make me happy. And also, although it's not perfect, it's perfect to me, and we're still working on like tackling our imperfections. And so I guess that leads to like another reason why I want to do chair. I want to go back to board. Is KP isn't perfect. We think we're like such a great community, but there's so much changes that we need to do, and I want to help plant those seeds to that change. And lastly, like we need to continue fostering the growth of like badass Pinay leaders in this. Yes. Yeah, that's why I'm running for board, because there's no other better way that I want to end my college career than with KP.
KP is under the umbrella of Kapwa Tao, but certain entities within Kapwa Tao have been dying out. Do you have any plans to revive the other orgs and coalitions within Kapwa Tao? And if so, what are they?
So we always emphasize the importance of community in KP, and we definitely have that within our space. But now that we're already really big, we should continue to foster like change within like our fellow Filipino orgs on campus. No bias because I'm in Pag-asa and I founded Pag-asa, but like we should definitely bridge the gaps between like other Kapwa Tao orgs. And so like we just need to we need to work together, because not only is KP the biggest Filipino org on campus, we don't offer all the resources that students need. For example, Push offers a lot of career building, a lot of like professionalism, like workshops that a lot of our community should take advantage of. And it's important that we continue to promote those initiatives that Push has. Specifically for Pag-asa, I've always wanted to have like a space on campus where I'm able to express myself and my religion and my faith, but I felt like I was lacking with that. And so we made that change and made that space here on campus. I feel like it's just really important for us to actually, instead of just calling it an umbrella term called Kapwa Tao, we need to actually be together. We need to actually create an actual like active board of people, representatives that'll come together like monthly or at least 2 times a quarter, where we could talk about programming, talk about marketing initiatives to help each other out. Because at the end of the day, we're a big Filipino community here on campus.
Chair does a lot of things. Because of that, you have a lot of power. What are some actionable plans, goals, and or new ideas do you have for KP?
So I guess my vision for KP, like I said, stems back to the word community. Like I said, the plans for Kapwa Tao, we also need to work on like our like smaller orgs within us, like KP Core and KP Star. It's really important to have visibility for these orgs because we're all like one big org together. And so, for example, we won't have the change that we want. We won't have the leaders and continued like growth of our space if we don't have access. If we don't help KP Core, how are we going to bring these new like initiatives, these new people to help us like continue to help our org grow? And so also at KP Star, it's really important because, they're here at this university, but what's going to help retain them? What's going to help them stay? And definitely, personally, KAA has been a really important part of my college career. I really love my fam. I'm an only child, so I never really had siblings to look to. And so KAA gave me those siblings and like mentors and mentors. In regards to KP Core, I came from a really low income community back home in San Francisco under a single parent household. So being able to be on this university and look back at all the different things I achieved was really relieving. And I really want to show my gratitude and continue to have these efforts and continue to build a community within like our big KP community. Which then, what was the question again? Sorry.
Because if you have a lot of power, so what are some actual plans, goals, and their new ideas you have for KP?
KP then stems outside of our Filipino org. It stems into a bigger Asian American community. It's important to start having these conversations with these other Asian orgs on campus to push for like the continued funding of the Afri Meta Center and like the creation of the critical of Asian American Studies minor. Also, okay, I'm just gonna flat out say it. We really need to fix our relations with SAC because what the fuck is happening with SAC right now? And in order to do so, we just need to start having creating this space and creating the dialogues with these orgs. We're like affiliates with the CCC and the LGBTQ RC, so we should take advantage of that and start having like these workshops and programming to educate like our growing community. Which then leads to our community outside of UCSD, to FCC, to SC PASA. It's important to maintain good relations with other Filipino orgs outside of UCSD.
Many times throughout the school year, board members may feel burned out or checked out their position. How will you keep them accountable while still retaining them in the space?
Being on board is hard, and it makes sense why they would want to check out. But it's important to give them the space to do self-care. But it's important to also remind them that why are they in this board in the first place? Who do they do it for? And just remind them like what was their motivation to give back to this community. And I feel like it's just important to keep them accountable, but also give them the space that they need in order to continue to succeed on board. Instead of like pushing them to keep doing, I guess like instead of pushing them to the point where they feel like the board space is toxic.
KP has been accused of being anti-Black by many SAC communities. What is your understanding of anti-Blackness, and what is your plan for addressing anti-Blackness in KP?
I feel like what we don't realize is that in order for our Filipino community to be liberated, we need to help with the liberation of other communities of color, especially the Black community. I feel like in general we've always, like what Auding RJ reiterated earlier, is that we always have these plans, but it's important to actually go out and start talking to people and start actually being the works of creating this dialogue and like conversations with others. I feel like another thing is that sometimes people feel scared to ask questions because they don't know much about like, I guess, social justice or like political things, but I feel like one way is to create a space for people that can easily just ask questions and not be afraid to make a mistake, and like just be able to create spaces where people could talk. I think like just talking is already one important step to reform.
A new program that was started this year was internship program. As chair, you are in charge of overseeing the program or may appoint someone of your choosing. What goals, if any, do you have to expand and promote this program to be more better?
I want to roll this question. First off, I wanted to thank Jacob for even implementing this internship program, because I definitely feel like so many first years in the space are genuinely like really excited to take on leadership roles. As you can see, like we have like 21 applicants to like the selections. It's definitely like helped out a lot. I feel like chair does have a lot of things to like a lot of projects. I think that's the whole point of why like they don't have an event, is because they're trying to like help sustain a board and help them with their events, while also like being a positive representative of KP to these like other outside works. I definitely feel I see myself appointing an internship coordinator that I could work closely with. I definitely want to try out different like looking at, I haven't personally looked at the syllabus for the internship program, but I definitely want to try out different things like probably letting interns start in winter quarter so they know, so during fall quarter they could actually have a feel of like the space and know what exactly is going on. But yeah, I don't really have specific plans, but I do want to continue the internship program because I definitely feel like it helped out a lot in retaining a lot of audience.
The relationships we have with other organizations have been dying. For example, BOD, SAC, etc. What actionable things can you do to ensure that these relationships not only continue but thrive?
I feel like it's very important to actually get not just the chair involved in these things, but also the board itself. In terms of SAC, you could get like the political pillar involved, maybe even working with like creating workshops or just joint GBMs with fellow SAC orgs, or like reaching out to the community centers that we have here on campus that are a part of these like SAC orgs. What was the question again? My bad. Dying relations. Is that the question?
Oh, what actionable things can you do to ensure that these relationships not only continue but thrive?
Definitely instead of just like chair involved, it's important to get like the whole board involved. It just makes a more lasting impact and see that we actually are supportive. And also just inviting the rest of like our org, like GBMers, to come out to like protest, to participate in initiatives. I feel like just having that little push and having like that more representation helps out a lot.
Are there any more pressing questions?
So just to remind and close out, so how the voting process works.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. So voting will be open by tonight, and then it will close Thursday at 11:59 p.m. Results will be announced at KP Banquet May 12th. Ballot will be posted on the KP page. Minutes and YouTube videos will be posted on the KP page. In order to vote, you must have
Thank you for watching.
like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.